After spending months building my product and pouring in all my savings, we finally launched. And then nothing happened. Not a single sale. So I did what every founder does. I looked at feedback. And that's when the real problem started. Your onboarding is confusing. Pricing feels too high. This feature is missing. Your homepage isn't clear. I can't invite my team. Within a day, I had over 20 things to fix, and I had no idea which one actually mattered. If I guessed wrong, I'd waste time, burn cash, and then still be stuck. And that's when it hit me. I didn't have a product problem, I had a priority problem. And that's also when I came across something called the RICE prioritization framework. RICE is a simple product prioritization framework extended from the original ICE framework created by Sean Ellis and popularized by the team at Intercom. It's a super simple way to rank what to work on first so you don't waste time building the wrong thing. Once I used it, everything changed. We stopped guessing and started making clear, data-backed decisions, and within weeks, we had finally started getting some sales. So let me show you exactly how this works. First, here's the trap every founder falls into. When you first launch a product, lots of things can and do go wrong, and that's when you panic. You want to fix everything immediately, but you can't. You don't have the time, money, or team. And so you guess. You pick what feels most urgent or what the loudest customer is complaining about, and here's the problem with guessing or listening to your loudest customers. This is an actual example from one of my products where one of my loud customers said, I can't invite my team. This is a deal breaker. That sounds very specific and urgent, right? So I spent 2 weeks building team collaboration features, launched it, and announced it to that one customer, and then they completely ghosted me. Why did this happen? Because that wasn't their real problem. They said it was because they wanted to sound helpful at the time. I wasted 2 weeks and several $1,000s building this feature that nobody really needed at that point in time. This is why you need a systematic way to prioritize. So in the next section, I'm going to get into what exactly is the RICE framework. RICE stands for reach, how many customers can we touch with a given feature? I is for impact, what's the value per customer that you can capture back with this feature? C is for confidence, how certain are we? And finally, E is for effort. What's the cost to build out this feature? The formula to then determine ROI for any given feature is multiplying reach with impact with confidence and then dividing that by effort. This gives you a RICE score, and it's not meant to be an absolute number which has a meaning. It's actually a number you use relative to other features in order to prioritize a list of features, starting with the highest scoring items. This sounds pretty simple, right? But then we run into a set of other challenges. Things like, how do you prioritize work that delivers on the biggest impact for the least amount of effort without fooling yourself? Here are 3 common challenges that emerge when assembling your RICE score. Challenge number 1 is, how do you objectively and fairly score reach, impact, and confidence or effort? What's the scale that you should use? Should onboarding be a 7 or an 8, or is it a 6? Is this feature worth $5,000 or $7,500 or something else entirely? It's quite easy to overvalue things we want to build and skew the numbers when we do this kind of arbitrary scoring. Challenge number 2 is setting minimum success criteria. Does a high impact score require 5 pre-orders, 50 pre-orders, or just a strong feeling? And then the final challenge here is, how do you prevent worse ideas from creeping over better ones when you are skewing numbers this way? When team members fudge numbers in order to make their favorite idea win, the whole system breaks. This is where another technique, Fermi estimation, comes in to save the day. So what I found is that the original framework doesn't tell you how to score objectively. Too many people try to chase precision by assigning weights and doing elaborate estimates. But when you're operating under conditions of high uncertainty, such as in a startup, this kind of precision can be a false proxy, which not only complicates the problem, but also can easily mislead you down the wrong path. And that's where Fermi estimations come in. Enrico Fermi was a physicist famous for making rapid order of magnitude estimates with very little data. He'd only aim for estimating an input to the nearest power of 10, and for most problems, that is good enough to come up with a solid decision. Let's take estimating effort as an example. If you try to estimate effort for building a feature down to the nearest hour, You'll, one, waste time over planning instead of actually doing and building. Two, you'll hide unknowns in layers of innocent lies because there are just too many numbers to look at. And three, you create room for politics to creep in where people can fudge numbers to make their idea win. When using the Fermi estimation technique, instead of scoring efforts as 3.7 days, you can only get to choose from among the following choices. A feature can only be completed in 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months. I think you'll agree with me that it's hard to mistake a 2-week project for a 2-month project. This kind of rough estimation eliminates subjectivity across your team and speeds up decisions by 10x because everyone can pick from among those choices for any given feature. The key here is to create an order of magnitude scale for all your inputs in the rice score. And these are the exact scales that I use. For reach, which is a measure of how many customers or users a given feature will impact, you can only choose from the following power of 10 values. You can either aim for impressing just one person, 10 people, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. This kind of 10x step forces you to round to the nearest power of 10, which again, anyone should be able to agree with. Power of 10 estimates are also helpful when ballparking impact. When considering a potential feature, your job is to estimate how much value or potential revenue you'll generate from that feature. Instead of doing lots and lots of funny math and projections on an Excel spreadsheet, most people can quickly do a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation and pick a number when the only choices are $100, $1,000, $10,000, or $100,000 per customer. Remember, the goal here again is speed and clarity and not fake precision. The other two inputs, confidence and effort, require a slightly different treatment. If we measure confidence as a percentage, powers of 10 don't really work because we'd have only 3 values, 1%, 10%, and 100%, and we probably don't want to do anything with a 1% chance of working, and 100% certainty is a near impossibility. So instead, I recommend using 20%, 50%, and 80%. Think of them as 20% being low confidence. These are for things that might be just hunches at the moment. 50% could go either way, where you've got some kind of an anecdotal signal, but you're not quite sure. 80% is high confidence. This is where you have strong evidence or data backing the initiative you want to undertake. The key here is justifying your number with appropriate evidence or data to back your reasoning. For effort, the project management world has come up with all kinds of ways for estimating work. Some of them are quite convoluted and complicated and frankly overkill when you're a founder in a startup. The scales I use when estimating any new feature or initiative are simple. I look at every feature from the lens of, can it be done in 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months? Anything longer is just way too long in the startup world. For scoring purposes, these are the values that roughly align with these choices. 2 hours is about a point, and if we kind of use that as a relative scale, 2 days is roughly a 10x, so we give it 10 points. 2 weeks is not quite 10x, it's more like a 5x, so we give it 50 points, and the same with 2 months. It's a 5x from a 2-week effort, and so that's another 250 points. And that is how you assign scores and convert efforts in days, hours, and weeks into actual points you can use in your scoring rubric. Now, with your scales established, calculating a Fermi rice score then becomes pretty fast and straightforward. You just do the math and come up with an absolute number that you use to then relatively rank your feature list. In the next section, I'll walk you through the steps with a concrete example. So step number 1 is to list all the features or initiatives you're currently considering. In a startup, this isn't just limited to product features. You should also consider marketing campaigns and other experiments that you might be running as well. Step number 2 is to score each option uniformly using the Fermi scales. As an example, I was considering a new feature that could potentially drive conversions for a $100 a month product. This might be how I would have scored it. For reach, I would look at my existing user base and existing channels and pick from one of these power of 10 values. Now, your actual number will vary, of course, depending on your situation, but let's assume that in my case, I'm just starting out, and so reaching 100 people sounds about right, and so that's the number that I picked. For impact, I would estimate the value of this feature. It's important to be consistent here, and I prefer using annual revenue per user, or ARPA, for this purpose. For a $100 a month product, that equates to $1,200 a year, which is closer to $1,000, and so that's the value I'd pick here. Moving on to confidence, remember that this should be a function of your evidence trend. Assuming I'm eating my own dog food and practice what I teach on this channel, I should have done my research and interviewed a dozen potential customers for this feature and pitched them using my own demo cell build approach and created a Maurya offer to test all this out. If I did all of that, I would have ended up with a strong signal or a 80% confidence score. And so that's what I use for that input of confidence. Let's go on to number 4, effort. I'd want to estimate how quickly I could get this feature in the hands of my customers. Could I do it in 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or 2 months? Again, here your mileage will vary depending on the actual feature or initiative on your plate. But let's assume in this example, 2 weeks is about the right scope for this project. And so that's the value that I pick, and that translates to 50 points. Then in step 3, I would calculate the RICE score using the formula I shared above. Reach, impact, confidence multiplied together, divided by effort to come up with a RICE score of 160. I would repeat this for all my features on my list and then stack rank them like this on this visual, and then simply pick out the ones with the highest score and come up with my short list of features that I should consider. And this is exactly the process that I used to go through my long laundry list of 20 some odd features that I had after my initial product launch. I scored all of them in just half a day using the technique above, stack ranked them to pick my top 3 campaigns to work on, and then got to work. The power of this technique is that it's fast, and even though it's still a rough estimate, it's one that you can easily justify to anyone on your team, making it more objective and transparent. But as simple as it looks, it's still easy to mess it up and come up with a few pitfalls. And so in the next section, let me talk about some common mistakes to avoid. Mistake number 1 is breaking the Fermi rule. It's easy to think that if you are more certain about a certain number, like say effort, you should just use a more accurate number. You might think, well, for this particular feature, I know it's going to take me 7 days, and so I'll just put down 7 days. But that's not one of the actual values, and doing this will actually skew your scores non-uniformly. You should always stick to a scale and force yourself to pick from that scale, even if you think you know better. If you're between 2 choices, round up to the closer value. That's always going to be the better approach. Mistake number 2 is overestimating confidence. Nothing ever converts at 100%, and it's actually quite humbling when you start measuring actual conversions per feature. Not only are conversion rates a lot lower than most people first expect, but the good news is that the more you do this, the better your judgment gets over time, and you learn to rely more on evidence strength than blind hunches. And mistake number 3 is rushing to build too quickly instead of testing first. Yes, this framework helps you prioritize what to build, but that doesn't mean you should then put on blinders and just simply build. Prioritizing the right work is the first step in the process, but it's equally important, if not more important, to then constantly remember that all campaigns can be broken up into even smaller experiments built on assumptions that you can test incrementally and systematically. This is really the other powerful side effect of using this prioritization framework. You've already exposed some of these key assumptions, such as how many people you'll impact and at what price point. You don't have to wait for the feature to be built to be able to test these input assumptions. You can start testing them before or during the build using more customer outreach or landing pages. And if you're not hitting the input signals that you need to pause and first figure out why before moving on with the build step. So this RICE framework coupled with Fermi estimates is now my default prioritization framework that I use for everything. I use it now to launch features, marketing campaigns, content, and other types of experiments. And it's a key feature in the new tool that I'm building for founders called Lean Spark that helps them prioritize the right thing and ignore the rest. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out that in the description below. And if you're still unsure on how to validate a feature before building it, you should check out this video over here where I cover how to know when you have enough validation. It shows you exactly when to stop researching and when to shift into build mode. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.